If you want to be a good artist, you have to learn your fundamentals. I'm sure you heard that advice before, but it was never followed by an explanation of what fundamentals are. In this video, I'll cover what fundamentals are, how these fundamentals are normally taught, and what are some resources you can use to teach yourself these fundamentals in the absence of a mentor or a classroom. Art in general is taught under three main categories: form, design, and concept. If you want to use academic posh names, you can also call them elements of art, principles of design, and aesthetic philosophy. Fundamentals fall under the first category, form, also known as elements of art. This category covers the physical aspects of art, so the things we can see and touch. There are 7 elements of art. The first 4, line, shape, form, and value, are absolutely non-negotiable. The last 3, space, color, and texture, are a little more into the advanced fundamentals. But that doesn't give a full image either. What is line as a fundamental? A line is a line. It goes from A to B. How do you study that? How do you learn a line? All fundamentals exist across practical and analytical skills. Line is a practical skill. It covers a topic of controlling a line. Can you draw a straight line? Can you draw a curved line? Can you consistently draw curved lines with the same gap in between them? Line also includes the training of the muscle memory for the hand and the arm. A lot of us have been taught how to write, so we use our wrists when we do art, but that's not how painters paint. We usually use our full arm like an orchestra conductor or a magician using a wand. In line training, we try to break into the arm a little, we try to loosen the muscles, learn how to control the full motion of our arm, and also gain more consistency and control over pattern making. And the second fundamental mentioned, shape, also sounds very simple because it is. A square is a shape. A circle is a shape. A triangle is a shape. It's actually just shape. As a teacher, I like to combine line and shape into a single chapter because both of them are very simple fundamentals. Along with this fundamental comes the skill of ratio taking, the ability to measure distances in between objects by sight or simple painting tools. If you want to draw a consistent rectangular and you want the length and width of it on your paper to be accurate to the nature, well, you kind of need to learn how to measure that without a ruler. This is an analytical skill. Once you learn line and line control and muscle skills around line and shape and ratio taking and measurements around these, you're done with chapter 1. Chapter 2 is going to be hell because we are going into form, which is kind of the longest chapter you will have in the basic skills. Form is the fundamental that covers 3D space, so the depth of things. Think of it like when a drawing becomes a sculpture, a shape becomes form. How do you study form, 3D space, on 2D space like a paper or a canvas? The illusion of depth is what we study as a form fundamental, which is perspective and constructive drawing theory. Both are analytical skills, which a lot of students find very tedious to learn and study. It is as a teacher literally where I have the most dropout rates. But once you get through it, you'll have the literal ability to draw anything you can see. Form is a lot to unpack, but basically you'll be learning it in this order: 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, 3-point perspective, how to rotate objects, organic perspective, varieties of organic perspective, and then perspective will be closed. There's also advanced perspective that you can go into, which you don't have to. It is not a fundamental, but it is stuff like scaling and warping and 5-point perspective. Once a student is done with perspective training, they move on to constructive drawing training. Constructive drawing theory is the ability to look at a really complex object and simplify it down to its basic shapes. Once a student is done with constructive drawing training, they are done with the fundamental of form and they can move on to chapter 3. Without chapter 2 form being completed, you'll not be able to move on to chapter 3 value, because chapter 3 value includes shadow theory and shading. Shadow is basically light warping around a 3D object. You'll not be able to study that without understanding that 3D object, without understanding constructive drawing theory. Chapter 3 value will start with tonal studies, which includes a student drawing a lot of 1 to 5, 1 to 10 tone scale, going from black to white. By these practices, we're trying to teach a student how to identify values in real life, to look at a red color or a blue color and know exactly where it falls onto on the grayscale. Once a student is done with tonal control training, they can move on to the shadow theory. We'll be first giving them the theoretical understanding of how shadow behaves, different kinds of light, different kinds of fracturing. Once they learn the theory of the shadows, the practice will start. While practicing, it will work a lot like constructive drawing theory, where you were given simple objects to draw, but this time we are drawing them with their shadows and full tonal scale. You'll be given objects like eggs to create soft shadows and cloth and drapery for overlapping shadows. Once a student learns how to control shadows on different different kind of surfaces, reflectiveness and transparency, the chapter is closed. This is actually a really fun chapter. With that, we are already 3 chapters in and 4 fundamentals down. Remember I said that the first 4 fundamentals are non-negotiable and everything else is a little further into the advanced? In the next videos, I'll be focusing on line, shape, form and value, exactly in that order, covering how to teach yourself these things, creating resources on these things, and hopefully making the fundamentals a bit more accessible to you. Once I properly cover these 4, I will move on to advanced fundamentals. I have linked below a worksheet that is basically like a lesson plan for these fundamentals mentioned. It includes recommended websites and resources and self-assessment criteria. This printable is available in case you're really looking to get ahead of the class. Thank you for trusting me with your education. I'll do my very best.